time travel is one of the most fascinating ideas that has ever graced humanity. The ability to contemplate the future or the past arouses a lot of interest in all of us. A journey through time, either into the future or ancient times, may give us an idea about what life was like for our ancestors or future generations. A look back into the past could also help to unravel many mysteries that have plagued humanity as a whole. However, for the moment, this idea is pure fiction. We don't even know for sure if time travel is possible. There have been several cases in the past in which people claim to have solved the mystery of time travel or worked alongside government operations to conquer the hurdles of time travel in the modern age. For the most part, many of these cases can be assumed to be fake. However, there are a few cases that seem too real to dismiss. In this video, we'll look at 10 such cases so you can form your own opinion about whether or not you believe time travel is truly possible. Let us know in the comments, do you think time travel is possible, or is it little more than theoretical science? If time travel is possible, do any of our actions truly matter if we can just go back in time and redo them? Mobile phone during World War II. This case revolves around a photo that was taken in 1943 in Iceland. A busy intersection can be seen at first glance. The sidewalks are filled with people and there are several cars in the street. However, if we take a closer look at the photo, we may notice a man who seems to be leaning against a shop window. He looks like a fairly normal worker, but there's one minor detail that is super interesting about him. If you look closely at his right hand, it seems like he may be talking on a modern-day smartphone. However, I'm sure we're all aware that mobile phones were just a figment of human imagination at the time. We were still stuck in the days of reel-to-reel tape players, and home entertainment had only just begun to pop up. The idea of a man having a smartphone in 1943 is completely absurd. Or is it? It's difficult to know for sure what this man could have been doing, but is it possible he's some sort of time traveler and is using a device from the distant future? If so, how is he able to maintain a connection? Without cell phone towers, you could assume his phone would be useless. Whatever's going on here, it definitely seems a bit unordinary. This may be a pure coincidence that the man happens to be using a device that looks like a phone, or maybe he really is a time traveler. John Titor. John Titor is the pseudonym of a man who claims to have traveled from the year 2036, about 15 years in the future. In our world, he first popped up in the year 2000 with the mission of finding an old IBM computer from 1975 and taking it back with him into the future. He says he needed this computer to use the Linux operating system in the year 2038. For some reason, this OS became super important in 2036, and he needed a classic 32-bit computer to boot into it. He says he tried buying one on eBay twice, but he was always outbid at the last second. Because of this, he had no choice but to turn to the members of an online community for help in procuring one of these elusive machines. John Titor's story is one of the most interesting stories of time travel, as he made predictions that would come true just a few years later. He showed members of the forum a photo of his time machine and even predicted that the New York City Twin Towers would be struck down just a year later. He also predicted that a major war would break out between the United States and several Middle Eastern countries, and predicted that gas prices would skyrocket as a result. All of these things proved to be true. He even went as far as accurately picking lottery numbers. However, on March 24, 2001, John Titor found what he had come for, hopped back in his time machine, and traveled back to the future, never to be heard from again. CIA Time Travel Program Project Pegasus. Andrew Basiago claims to be a time traveler as well. He says that he can see both the past and the future, with all of this being made possible due to a CIA time travel program known as Project Pegasus. The project was carried out between 1962 and 1972 and was designed to contact previous presidents, teleport people to Mars, and even maintain relationships with aliens, allegedly, of course. Aside from the idea of being able to physically travel back in time, Project Pegasus would also help to create two new technologies: the ability to teleport and travel back in time through means of a holograph. Andrew told crazy stories about his time working with the CIA and says that he now has a goal of becoming president so that he can declassify all the information about the project and bring the technology to the masses. If this were to ever happen, history would be permanently changed forever. But what's particularly scary is that if Andrew is telling the truth, we would never know. Even if the government was able to change the past and impact the future, we would have still grown up blissfully unaware of the changes. Andrew Carson. In 2003, Andrew Carson was arrested by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. He had apparently made about 126 high-risk stock trades and managed to make heaps of money on each of these trades. He invested an initial amount of just $800, but managed to instantly turn that money into $350 million. As a result, he made a 4-hour confession to the SEC and claimed that he was a time traveler from the distant future and that he was able to accurately trade these stocks as a result of looking at future market trends. He says that in exchange for serving a small amount of time in prison, he would release details about the location of Osama bin Laden, a man who had been on the run from the United States for many years. He also claimed to have detailed information about a cure for AIDS. What makes the case of Andrew super strange is that he managed to be temporarily released from prison on bail. However, as soon as he was released, he disappeared and was never seen again. The Flight Through the Storm. In 1935, Sir Victor Goddard was an air marshal in the British Royal Air Force. He was on a flight from Edinburgh to a base in Andover, England. About midway through his flight, he got caught up in a terrible storm. He says that the storm nearly took his entire plane to the ground, and he felt as though the intense rain was going to rip his plane apart. What's so strange about this is that the skies had been completely clear before takeoff. By all means, it was a beautiful day for a flight. When he finally made it out of the storm and flew back towards the airfield, he noticed that large portions of the center had been completely deserted and abandoned. He also noticed that some of the main hangars had been repainted into a different color scheme. Also, the men who were working at the base were not wearing their appropriate uniform colors. Instead, they were all wearing blue overalls. As he continued to fly overhead, he was caught in yet another storm. After he made it out, he was once again brought back to the modern day. He says that the base looked just like it always had and everything was back to normal. As it would turn out, the base would be painted just a few years later, matching the color scheme that Sir Victor Goddard had spoken about. The uniforms also saw a major change, with most men now wearing blue overalls. By all means, it seems as though Goddard may have temporarily traveled into the future. Alien Invasion Warning. In October of 2017, police officers in the U.S. state of Wyoming became aware of a man who pretended to be from the future. He introduced himself as Bryant Johnson and said he was tasked with saving the world. He reportedly came from the year 2048 and was sent here by aliens to warn residents about an impending race of evil aliens who threatened to wipe out humanity. However, as it would turn out, he had traveled too far back into the past. He was supposed to travel to 2018, but his machine miscalculated and sent him too far back. His case is interesting because police noted that he was acting strangely and smelled like alcohol. He justified this by saying the aliens had given him alcohol so he'd be able to survive the journey into the past, but this was obviously a bit too far-fetched to believe. In the end, the officers took him in and placed him in a holding cell until he was sober. Time and space travel by a Spanish soldier. This case revolves around a Spanish soldier named Gil Perez, who appeared in the Plaza Mayor of Mexico City back in October of 1593. He showed up visibly confused and reported that he knew the governor of Manila, adding that he had been assassinated on October 25th, 1593. However, police told him that the current date was October 24th. They then arrested him for desertion and witchcraft. About 2 months later, a ship came in from Manila, informing the locals that the governor had indeed been assassinated on October 25th. One of the men on the ship also told police that he saw the soldier, Gil Perez, in Manila on the 23rd, though this couldn't have been possible if he was already in Mexico City on the 24th. In the end, the soldier was released from prison. Is it possible that this man may have somehow accidentally traveled through time? Edward Meyer's encounter with UFOs and their occupants. Edward Albert Meyer worked as a farmer in Switzerland. Aside from his normal daily job, he claims to have had an extremely unique life. He says that he had made contact with aliens many times between 1942 and 1975. During his last conversation with him, Edward said that he wanted to get evidence from them to prove that he was speaking with genuine aliens. The aliens refused to provide him with the evidence and said they didn't want to interfere with our current culture. At the end of the day, the only evidence we have that Edward may be telling the truth is a few photographs of UFOs that are seen flying over the Swiss mountains, but the photos could not be authenticated. We may never know if Edward was really telling the truth at all this time. Rudolph Fence. In 1950, a strangely dressed man appeared in New York and stumbled around in Times Square, almost seeming as though he was drunk or hurt. He was wearing ancient clothing, but no one knows exactly where he came from. He appeared out of nowhere and fell into the street where he was struck by a taxi. He passed away almost immediately from his injuries. During his autopsy, the coroner and police found several old dollar bills, as well as deposit stamps and a letter that was dated 1876. They also found a few of his business cards with his name on them. When police began to piece together his identity, they came across an old cold case from the year 1876, in which a man named Rudolph Fence had mysteriously gone missing. His appearance and clothing matched the description of the case. The Catholic Time Machine. The case of the chronovisor goes back to the Catholic priest Francois Brune. The priest says that an Italian scientist informed him of a time machine that would allow them to view the past and even present events. He said 12 scientists had helped create the device and even went as far as posting a photo of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ as evidence. While this case may sound compelling, it was soon found out that the image was a forgery. He provided another piece of evidence, a transcript that had been written in the year 169 BC. However, this too was found to be a fake. In the end, the story of the chronovisor seems to have been entirely faked. However, we don't know what the motive would be to fake such a story aside from a small amount of fame. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos.